With that, we welcome Josh Kail, Pennsylvania State Representative, leading the impeachment effort. All right, Josh, high crimes and misdemeanors is what the U.S. Constitution has as a bar for impeachment. How do you get there with Krasner?
Yeah, thank you for having me on here tonight, Leland. In Pennsylvania, the Constitution lays out a process that's basically misbehavior in office. What's interesting, any official across the entire Commonwealth actually can end up being impeached by the House of Representatives and convicted by 2/3 of the Senate. Really, we are beginning this process now with Philadelphia D.A. Larry Krasner for three main reasons. First, we want to have broad bipartisan support. We think we're going to get that. The more stories that we hear, the more problems that we're seeing coming out of Philadelphia, it's astounding. The second reason why we began this process is to garner more public information from victims, from people that have really suffered because of the DA's dereliction of duty. And the third is to highlight the absolute dereliction of duty that we have seen and the people of Philadelphia have suffered through over the course of the last number of years. Lives have been lost, property has been destroyed, families have been crushed. Enough is enough.
Yeah, we're watching some of the crime right now. Somehow, though, the people in Philadelphia don't seem to feel that way. Krasner won re-election by 71% of the vote. What is the House's right or the Senate's right to overrule the rule of the people in Philadelphia who clearly like something enough to elect him and re-elect him?
Yeah, our standard for impeachment is not what happened in the last election. I'm not even sure who actually he ran against, how it went. Our standard for impeachment is misbehavior in office. And I got to stress, this is a very important point as well to make. The laws that we pass in Harrisburg are not mere suggestions. A prosecutor's role is to enforce the law. And when you have a situation like with D.A. Krasner, where his failure to do so, his express and absolute hostile failure to do so, has quite literally caused people's lives to end and property to be destroyed, it's to the point where we have to do something, and that's what we're doing here. And I feel pretty bullish that we are going to be moving forward with this, and it's going to.
Do you yet have any Democrats, either in the House or the Senate, who've signed on?
With the initial co-sponsor memo, I have not checked where it's at this point in time. I do anticipate that when a final vote comes up in the House of Representatives, it will be a bipartisan vote. I do anticipate, and I would say it's
obviously in San Francisco, there's a lot of Democrats who voted to recall Chesa Boudin. No question about that. And we'll see if Gascon in L.A. gets recalled. You talked about laws, DA Philly policies, never pursue the death penalty, reject stop and frisk, reform the cash bail system, otherwise known as let people out on pinky promises, stop abuse of civil asset forfeiture, and alternatives to incarceration. Here's his response. They have no legal basis whatsoever. They're having fewer people from Philly in their jails. Oh, my, you don't suppose there's an economic incentive there to have more people fulfilling in their jails? I guess it'd be filling their jails.
Leland, I have no idea what he's trying to get at.
Yeah,
there. I don't have a state prison in my area. I think the DA has lost his mind. His response has been all over the place. Here's the bottom line. There might be things that the DA and I agree on as far as policy, but it's not his role as a prosecutor to just refuse to enforce the law. It is the role of the legislature to pass law. They're not recommendations. It's the legislature's job to pass laws. And by the way,
hold on. Due respect, sir. There is sentencing recommendations and there is prosecutorial discretion that's built into the law. The prosecutors are not required to prosecute. There is that discretion built into the law. And I just go back. The Republican that he ran against in 2021, in these crimes that we're watching, was on the ballot because people knew what was happening in Philadelphia. The Republican got 28% of the vote. He got more than 71% of the vote. How do you explain that if people in Philadelphia should be so upset and incensed by the violence there?
There is prosecutorial discretion, and that's a case-by-case basis. But when you publicly come out and state, I'm not going to be enforcing this law or that law, I'm not going to be going after certain arrest warrants, and then people turn around and end up murdering people because he's refusing to enforce the law, something has to be done. And that's exactly what we have in Philadelphia. It is beyond prosecutorial discretion. He is quite literally deciding which laws to enforce and which ones not to enforce. And it's remarkable to me because there's a debate now nationally regarding gun laws and new laws and what we need to do. All the laws in the world don't mean a thing if we don't have prosecutors that are willing to enforce them. We got to get back to the basics. We got to go back to law and order. And the reign of chaos has been gone on for too long in Philadelphia, and it's time that something is done about it.
Give me a timeline on this. Does there have to be impeachment hearings and then a trial in the way we think of an impeachment of the U.S. president?
So there's an impeachment process that goes through the House of Representatives. The articles of impeachment are introduced, and then it goes through the Judiciary Committee, and then the full House will vote on it. We're developing those articles right now, and then there will be a trial and an up or down vote in the Senate where there needs to be 2/3 of the senators to convict and throw him out of office.
All right, as I look at the makeup right now, of the 50 Senate seats, 28 Republicans, 20 Democratic, and 1 vacant there in the Senate. All right. Hey, Representative, we appreciate you being with us. Come back and talk to us throughout this process, because I can just imagine there's state legislatures in Missouri where it's heavily Republican thinking about these kinds of issues, as well as some other states. So thank you.
It's gone on too long. Thank you, Leland.
Yeah, we appreciate the time. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.